All right. Awesome. There we go. Hello. Hello from Berkeley, Michigan. Some raking before snow. Ah, awesome. Yeah, man. On one hand, I love the beauty of snow, but on the other hand, being in snow is a little bit of a nightmare. I mean, I guess it depends on your current situation, but I have a love hate relationship with snow. But here we are. We are officially in the groove. How's everyone doing? Excuse me. I am just exhausted. uh, haven't been getting much sleep. Not because I haven't been trying, but uh, just middle of the nights have been very rough. A lot of stress, especially this political season, uh, and it's been pretty rough. But you know, I just had my second cup of coffee, and after this, I'm going to enjoy a wonderful workout and release as much tension as possible through that workout. So we'll see how that goes. When you have to drive it in, I'm guessing the snow. It's in it. Yeah, yeah. Drive in it. Yeah, yeah. Not too long ago, just a few months ago, I want to say, I went to I went to Big Bear, and just driving in that was was really really rough. So I understand where you're coming from. But yeah, now we're just having a good time talking, uh, and yeah. So what about you guys? Ah, what's been happening with you guys? Tell me your woes. Well, all right. Well, let's see what else is happening. Well, I will say that this is a particularly rough time of year for me because I have family and friends whose birthdays are in November with the holidays coming up around the corner. So, and even though I'm decent at gift giving because my gifts aren't generic, they're very customized towards the person. It's also very much a I don't typically enjoy gift giving on days like birthdays or holidays. It's more of if there's something that I know a person would deeply appreciate, that I personally deeply care for, then I'll do that for them in that moment. But just to wait until an excuse like a birthday or the holidays has always been a little challenging for me. So we'll see how this holiday season goes. uh, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have been creating new uploads for the channel, and I've been trying to rework some of my lighting, as you might be able to see, maybe not, but I'm slowly starting to change my set. I've had to buy a lot of different new tools because either the old tools I had were dying or just start slowly incorporating new set pieces. Hopefully, in the future, I'm going to have a brand new whole set that'll look really nice. Like right now, I'm using lights just for this, but these lights can also turn different colors, and I'm going to get a seamless and put that up behind me so it'll actually look decent. And you won't have to see everything that's behind me. But hopefully everything that I create behind me will be really visually appealing and nice for all of you here. But yeah, again, we'll just see how that goes. I am hoping for the best, but it is a long, arduous work in progress. So we'll see how it goes. So something else that I've been getting more into has been, so I think I've already mentioned this, but I've been getting more into trap shooting, and I might get into sporting clays and skeet at some point in the future. But honestly, it's a very, very expensive hobby. So I've been thinking about more getting into archery as well, and just switch between them. But we'll see how it goes. A person I really look up to is my grandfather, and he was the strongest, most capable man I've ever met. And up until his dying day, he was still the strongest man I've ever met. I remember just the day before he died, he shook my hand and he still crushed it. And that just goes to show how strong, and he didn't look it either. He looked strong, but not that strong, and he was that strong. His entire life was an arduous battle, and he went through life, even though there was a lot of strife and challenge, he still pulled it together and lived his final decades with the biggest smile on his face and the best attitude, and still was devoted to being strong and adventurous. And I really look up to that, and that's something that I really want to embody more of. And he was really, really good at archery as well, and I would like to, and golf, and both of those things actually are things that I would love to be able to cultivate and get into. But all of these are hobbies that require money. So obviously shooting is much more expensive than something like archery, but we'll see how it goes. Hey, I just wanted to thank you for taking my voice play request. Was it okay to use Patreon? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have other videos coming out for YouTube and Patreon. The American Pie video that you requested is going to be coming out as a Patreon exclusive in the tier that you have. So that one's going to be posted there next week. And I also got a couple more requests that are also going to come out next week, but I have to get those edited. So, but all new videos, hopefully a new set too next week, but we'll see if everything comes in and I'm able to set everything up well by next week. But yeah. I saw a lot of comments on my last voice play video of Mr. Blue Sky, and a few of them were just around, I really needed this on this day, and I'm assuming it's because their political candidates lost, or they could have just been having a rough day. But in times like that, I'm really thankful to know that there are people out there that come to this channel, and regardless of your political views, I'm very thankful that you can come here and enjoy the time and maybe learn something new and just vibe, chill, and have a nice time. And I really dig that. I really enjoy those times that I get to share with everyone. So to know that you guys reach out and appreciate that is really, really wonderful. Yeah, and no problem, John. But yeah, also just this last week, in terms of all of my equipment breaking down, let me tell you, that was a nightmare to get through. I had to buy new cables and new stand. I had to rework everything. My camera angle is a little bit different, and I had to modify a lot of stuff, so it was a little bit of a grind, but I got it working as soon as I could, and pushed out the content as fast as I could. So I'm appreciative. Some songs just bring back good memories. So does American Pie. Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time I heard that song. Ironically, it was just after I heard Weird Al's version of it, which was his Star Wars themed one. And that was when I was, I want to say, 7 or 8. And then right after that, I immediately listened to the original, and I just loved it. Just the pacing of the song, the vocal aesthetics of the, it was just chef's kiss. I really, really dig that song. A classic, to be sure. Good evening, Jessica. Yeah, obviously, since that's what we're talking about. But yeah, it's a good song. I really dig it. But here we are, finally back again in another week of smooth sailing, hopefully. I had American Pie on 45. You had to flip the record on the B-side just to hear the entire song. Oh, man. Vinyl, huh? Records are really cool, not just as an aesthetic, but just as a piece of innovation. I think they're really, really cool. I remember when I really started enjoying music, I either had a portable CD player or a cassette player. And I really loved both of them. And the first time I got an MP3 player, the world changed. Really cool stuff. Elvis, Can't Help Falling in Love. I'm not an Elvis fan, but my late husband was. He always said it was his song to me. Aw, that's actually really endearing. Yeah, so there were a lot of artists that I grew up with that obviously weren't just classical musicians, but because my mom made sure that I was raised with a lot of classical music, but my dad made sure I was raised with a lot of classic rock musicians as well. And Elvis was one of them. Tom Jones also being another one, and Frank Sinatra, etc. Elvis as well. But listening to Elvis, there was something so unique about him. Just his style of singing, his natural timbre, obviously his performance, but man, what it would be like to see their concerts live. You know, when I was younger, there was an old VHS tape that my dad would always play during family game nights, which I believe was always on Friday or Saturday night. And it would depend on whatever it is that we wanted to put on that night, but more often than not, it was that Tom Jones VHS tape. And he would just walk on stage, girls adoring him, and he would just go over to one of them, kiss them directly. She would swoon, and he would just go on and do the performance. And I'm like, that level of charisma is insane. Couldn't get away with that today, but man, that charisma, oh my gosh, what a stud. That song was how I found voice play not long after my husband. Oh wow. Well, that's a little poignant, but also it's not a little, it is poignant, but that's also pretty beautiful, just in the sense that, you know, with something that can be taken as emotionally devastating and fill your heart with grief, there's also something with that in discovering something beautiful and new, even novel, that can not only distract you but can help generate enough momentum in your life to make the days more bearable and to actually take action in things that you know that you want to do. Because I've said this in past videos, but I wholeheartedly believe this, that momentum is everything. Like, I remember I hated working out. Every single time I did, I would throw up, and I hated throwing up. I still do. And I would feel weak and like I shouldn't be at the gym, and it was just a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare for me, just stepping foot in there. Because I knew that I would get sweaty and exhausted, and I didn't like feeling like that. And I was going to feel sore, and on top of it all, I was going to feel nauseous, and it was just, everything was compelling me not to do it. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that this was something that I needed for myself, something that I really wanted for myself, that there was a goal outside of these negative feelings that I had that I wanted to attain. And over time, I just went to the gym and only focused on cardio. No muscle building, no anything, just cardio. And I got there, I did it. there were times when I would only walk on an incline for 30 minutes, and that was it, left. And then I started going to the Stairmaster, and I would climb the stairs for 15 minutes, left. I was far more exhausted doing that than walking on an incline for 30 minutes. And then I bumped the Stairmaster up to 30 minutes, and that was very exhausting, and then I left. And I kept just focusing on cardio for a year. But after that year, there was never any feeling of nausea or anything, and it was actually part of a really consistent routine. And a lot of us don't typically care to admit this because this can actually be perceived as very dangerous. But there were a couple of books that I read that were very insightful. One being James Clear's Atomic Habits, and the other being Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. And James Clear is more of his book is more targeted around what you can do today and understanding what habits are, where The Power of Habit is understanding what habits are, but on a more fundamental level, and understanding how they're incorporated into our lives. And it was really magnificent reading those books, because when I was starting to realize that a lot of my life was kind of driven on this autopilot, even though I made conscious decisions every day, the things that I was doing were, I'm choosing what to do with my life every day. So much of everything that I was doing, even my negative habits, were driven because a particular cue happened, whether, it's 4 o'clock, time to do this thing that I know is self-destructive, or, it's this weather, it's time to do this, or if there's a particular cue that happens, whether it's a certain time in the day, or a particular person coming into your life asking you something, or whatever the cue is, at least in my case, and I'm sure in many other people's cases, it was just a default, this is the answer to this. And it wasn't really even given much thought to go into that. So when I started creating this strong routine of good habits, I started manipulating myself in very key ways of, all right, middle of the day is my time to work out. I break away from my computer for whatever filming or editing or whatever it is that I'm doing, and I go to the gym and I focus on that. And if I'm particularly having a very rough day, I'll go to the gym again at night, but only do cardio, just to get out that excess energy. And I was able to knock some of my terrible habits. I was able to incorporate some better habits. And right now, there was a period of time where I had this great habit, but of just constantly reading and learning new vocabulary words and learning a new language. But it wasn't as consistent as I wanted it to be, and it ended up fading. So I'm trying to make that more habitual again and just create this autopilot of every single day I go to the gym. That's great. But I also want it to be every single day I go to the gym, I read, I make sure that I'm learning a language and new vocabulary words in English to better express my thoughts. And I also want to make sure that there's a lot of points in my life where a lot of these good habits that I feel are ultimately not just contributing to a better version of myself, but contributing to the world in a way that is meaningful, even if it's on some very minor degree. And I want to keep growing and learning and expanding myself, keeping my mind open to different views, and ensuring that whether it's the things that I commit to, the things that I vote for, the things that I ultimately think is the right thing, that I'm doing so with conscious thought and not just an automatic response kind of thing. Dan, you introduced me to Dan Vasc and Tommy Johansson. I mean, that's awesome, but I never even heard of them before making this channel. So, whoever recommended them to me is the is the real hero of that. But yeah, so that's ultimately why I think momentum is so critical, just in the sense that the moment that you actually get into a groove and a rhythm, it's not even so much of a ugh, I have to do this, but it's more of a, well, it's time to do this. It's understanding your personal nature, your innate nature of saying the world itself is extraordinarily complex and it requires a ton of brain power just to navigate it. And I feel most people, if not all people, are wired to look for shortcuts, look for easy ways out of particular situations, or find ways to cut those corners. And for me personally, and I definitely am a part of that as well, which is all the more reason why when I structure things, I make sure that as long as I am at the bare minimum getting these things done, then I have achieved success for that day, even if I didn't achieve everything that I wanted to achieve in that day. And examples of that could be like, I would love to be so much more of a hard worker than I am. And to the people that know me, they know that I am a pretty hard worker, just in terms of every single day I go to the gym. Every single day I'm working on videos. Well, actually, that was true until recently, where I said every Friday and Saturday I'm using as my weekend. But Friday is pretty much the only day that I really take off. Saturday is kind of like a half day off, and then I just immediately pick back up into working out and editing any videos that I have saved, and I have a ton of videos saved. So overall, it's Friday is my day off and Saturday is a half day off. But even then, it's a lot. It's very tough trying to navigate everything. And even then, I still look at, I spent a ton of money, or rather, my family invested in me to develop analytical skills for data. And I went through the courses, I earned my certificates, I went through boot camps, and ultimately I learned a lot and wrote down a lot. And then I went out into the job market. I tried to secure any kind of job, and there was nothing. Every single time I was rejected, and it wasn't even so much of a, oh, you just need to hang in there. I was submitting applications for what feels like over a year. And even though there were a lot of positions in data that were open, there were very few that were truly entry level. Most entry levels said, no, we require 2 years minimum in the field already. And there were many others that were just scams. So it was infuriating knowing that there was all of this money, time, and effort placed into me, and knowing that I couldn't get into that field. So it's not so much that I broke away from that field, but I really tried to lean more into my side hustle at that time, which was YouTube. And then that side hustle became more of a full-time push. So I invested so much more time into developing this YouTube. And even though I'm still growing incrementally, it's infuriating because I'm nowhere near making this actually sustainable in terms of my finances. Again, it's a slow progress in its growth, but it's still really, really tough trying to live off of this and be financially independent. I would love to be much more out there and adventurous and do more things, which is why I considered making a vlog channel or something. I don't know, but I really do want this to work, and I'm putting in as much effort and energy as I can without cutting corners, and it's just so draining. So all of this just feeds back into there are places in my life where I truly feel like I'm not putting in as much energy as I should be, or as much effort as I should be, even though I know that I am working very, very hard. But it's more, I'd say it's more, I truly believe human potential is limitless, and that I have not achieved my potential yet. And I'm not anywhere near close to what my potential is. And I think that's the most infuriating part about it, which is, and I would love to hold all people to this standard, even though I know that that's wrong, so I don't. But I would love more people in my life that actually know what they're talking about and aren't just criticizing in this baseless environment. But to be surrounded by wise and educated people who provide varying perspectives as to not just how to navigate life, but how to draw out potential, how to blossom the raw potential that's there. And even though I've been getting tips and advice on YouTube, I'm still not anywhere near making this as sustainable as I really want it to be. And it's really, really tough, but I'm doing my best, and it's a work in progress, and I think that's the most important thing, and I'm glad you guys are here for that. Since losing my husband, I really came to find out that life is too short to not go for it. It being whatever you truly want or need to be happy. Yeah, I agree with that. We are ephemeral beings, and our bodies only last so long before they deteriorate. Just recently, an author that I adore, Robert Greene, he put out a video just recently saying he considers himself a very adventurous person, but he's aging and he's getting old, and now he's more incapable of going out into the world and adventuring the way he wants to. So he's putting in and he doesn't want to lose this adventurous spirit, so he's putting all of his extraneous energy into writing his next book, which I believe is entitled The Art of the Sublime, or something like that. The Beauty of the Sublime. And while I'm absolutely excited to read it, it is moments of there are moments of reflection in that where I think about how critical it is to wake up in the morning, regardless of the emotions you're feeling, just take in a deep breath and really reflect on the fact that there's a lot of there's a lot of really beautiful things in the world to really appreciate. So, uh, and you can always look at the glass half empty. You can look at it half full. You can look at it from a pure pragmatic point of view, or you can just look at it through your own lens and say, human beings are capable of producing great evil. They're capable of producing great goods. And it's up to each one of us on an individual level, ultimately, what we decide to do. And what's worth fighting for, what's worth waking up for. And I think the answer to that question is unique for each individual, and ultimately, regardless of whatever choice you decide to do, is a beautiful thing. Because I think the human condition itself is a beautiful thing. Blind and Frozen by Dan. Yeah, I've never heard of that, so I'll be sure to look at that. I worked for Kelly Services for 36 plus years. Maybe there is a posting you can fill. You did say data analyst, correct? Yeah. Yeah, so I actually got emailed Kelly Services for a data entry position, and I was hoping to grow through that. But unfortunately, their center was, the closest center to me is still too far away from where I live, and unfortunately, it was just it's too expensive to drive to work and drive home with the paycheck that they were offering. Me going there and coming back for the paycheck would be me killing time, essentially, because I wouldn't be keeping any of the money. All of the money would go to car maintenance and gas. And as I was mentioning, my data analyst skills have slightly atrophied, just because I've been putting so much focus and time into YouTube recently, alongside other job applications, of course. So it would take me a minute to jump back into the swing of things as well. And because of that, it's not so much of a gap in my resume because I've been working this entire time trying to develop things, but it's terrifying. It really is. And I'm just doing my best to take it a step at a time, focus on making better content, better quality content. Like, something that I would love is if I actually grew this channel enough and got enough credibility, not just as a musician, but with enough strength in this channel to be able to make another channel, make a lot of great content for that channel, grow these channels in a way that is actually sustainable and profitable, and get to a point where this can actually be my full-time job. Well, not to say that the work I'm putting into it isn't already full-time, because it is, and it's taking a lot out of me, but to actually make this sustainable, it's tough, man. It's really, really tough, but it's a work in progress. But a lot of what I hear on YouTube is, keep consistent. If you throw your pasta against the wall and it sticks, keep on with that. And that's what I found with these music reactions, which is awesome. But I think I have a lot more to offer than just my musical expertise. So, ultimately, I'd like to think that I'm a reasonably fun and funny person. um, and pretty adventurous. So I would like the opportunity to be able to go out into the world and make content like that, which is where vlogging came from. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes. But yeah, yeah. Very terrifying. But on top of everything, just there's a lot of, especially in recent times, there's been a lot of situations where I'm caught with strong emotional dilemmas, which are also weighing me down. And it is, and in order to not get sucked into that negative mindset, um, now more than ever, going back to the previous conversation of motivation, and routines, I've been more focused on working out and getting a stronger drive to read a lot more and to notate a lot more and to understand, uh, and to rely on these routines, these healthy routines that I know are good for me a lot more. Um, One, to distract me from the actual pain that I'm feeling, but two, to also confront that reality head on, put myself in as good of a mental space as possible with the productive work that I've been doing to be able to square up against the realities of where this negativity is coming from, square up against the negativity itself, my own darkness, let's say, and confront it, conquer it, overcome it, and press forward. And it's really terrifying because a lot of it is based in my relationships with people that I deeply care for. A lot of it is based in the relationship I have with myself. Um, and it's, to a certain degree, very debilitating. So it is just about understanding where this negativity comes from, why I'm feeling it, how to navigate through it, and doing so without losing anything that I consider to be very valuable about myself, such as my merit, my values, my ethics, my principles, and everything that constitutes me as me, you know? I moderate for another channel, and I know they face challenges every day on how to grow and make it sustainable. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's, oh, man. Like, it's tough, man. It really, really is trying to grow YouTube. After a certain point, even though, like I mentioned earlier, I'm still growing. It's so much smaller than when I first started that it's not as if I've really plateaued, but I'm not growing the way I want to, where I see other channels growing tremendously. And it's not so much of me comparing myself to other channels, because there's a lot of like great modern or not modern, but there's a lot of really great content that is very, very popular that people are very drawn to, regardless of how good their equipment is or how good their personality is. Maybe they're just really good at conveying knowledge. But whatever the case is, to actually grow is tough because, one, you need a great ability to make thumbnails, which I've been getting better at over time, but it's still not perfect. You need great thumbnails, you need great content, a likable personality, people that can genuinely connect with you, create real content, things that don't feel fabricated or over edited. And just time. And I think things that have contributed to this channel's success overall has been my passion for music and the fact that I am somewhat likable. But it's tough, man. Like, actually getting to a point where YouTube is... where my YouTube channel can grow tremendously. You know, I would love for it to grow. And I would love to have varying types of content on this channel. But I feel the more I do, the more that the people that I have here are going to say, well, this isn't the content that I signed on for. Gone. Or in another case, using the Gabriel Enrique video that I had up for a little bit, it was also... it's not so much you that I care about, it's the insight you have. And if the insight isn't focused on mostly praise with the slightest amount of criticism that makes it feel real, then I don't want it. And I understand that point of view. And it's tough, man. It's really, really tough trying to navigate... How do I grow? How do I grow at that point? And I think getting a real idea as to who I am is really good through vlogging itself. But also, on the other hand, you know, I don't want to put my entire life on the internet, which is... so it's writing this very fine line, and it's tough, but... you know, I'll figure it out. I've watched them improve and grow for a year, but they aren't everyone. So it's a matter of staying true to who they are, but still appealing to people. Also having to deal with YouTube's policies. YouTube's policies are a nightmare to navigate, let me tell you. Like, I saw a vlogging channel recently who's a very popular vlogging channel, and I think they just ended up quitting YouTube recently because of YouTube's policies. They have several issues with certain artists' fans. The slightest non-praise gets them in hot water. Absolutely. Not too long ago, I saw Peter Barber's critique of Dimash and Placido Domingo's Pearl Fisher's duet. And that was a video I also had on my channel at one point, but was taken down due to copyright. And the comments on that video were both, I really appreciate your insights, but also, you're just jealous, you'll never be as good as Dimash, you're never as good as this, or how dare you slur the name of Placido, or things like that. And when I was listening to his video, he was very honest, but in a beautiful way, where he recognized the legacy and legendary voice of Placido, but also recognized that he is aging and that his voice isn't holding up as well as it used to. And he doesn't put Dimash on a pedestal like many of his fans do. He analyzes him from a very human standpoint of we are both vocalists, we are both striving to engage with each other in a way that allows us to improve on a better level. And people find that very insulting to think, well, how could you possibly critique a god? Which is where that pedestal comes in. You know, you aren't worthy of providing critique for such a legendary performer because you're nowhere near as good or whatever. And, you know, that's like, it doesn't make any sense to me, because if you have a person, like, let's use trap shooting, for example. Vincent Hancock was the guy who recently won America's gold medal in trap shooting for the Olympics. And the idea of that being, can he not have a coach because he is the best? He is the undisputed best. Can he not have a coach? And it's just mind numbing that people think that just because you aren't the best at something doesn't mean you don't have valuable insight that can lead to their improvement as to where they already are. And I don't know, people have to stop being so self-righteous and get off their high horse. You know, recognize that a person is a person. They are a human being capable of producing great good and great evil and everything in between. And yes, they could be a great person. Yes, they can produce a lot of good in the world and move people with their art. I think that is a beautiful thing, especially if it attracts more people to music, especially classical styles of singing. But there's a lot of nuance that a lot of people overlook because they're so emotionally connected with that artist that the moment that another artist criticizes them or critiques them, it feels as though they themselves are receiving the personal attack of, well, you're questioning my taste in music because of all of these negative things you have to say about them. And they're not negative things, they're critiques. It's a huge difference. Negative things, in my personal opinion, is if a person is actually attacking you verbally, then they will comment on, like, all of their statements will be emotionally charged. You'll feel the personal attacks against them. Whereas if they're commenting more on specific technique or a subjective point of view that is not as well received as other people. Like for me, there is a reason why there is not a lot more Dimash videos on my channel, because they have performed exceptionally well. My SOS video from Dimash is my most viewed video on this channel. And I would honestly put out more Dimash videos. The problem is that out of all of the other Dimash videos I've heard, there's a lot of whisper singing. And I absolutely hate it. You know, a lot of people are telling me, you know, it's healthy for him and it's beautiful and it's all of these things. I don't agree. That's fine. But I know if I put those videos out, they're going to be so overwhelmingly hated that I just don't put them out. So it comes to a point of recognizing that we as artists all strive to make each other better. And I would love to put that to an even more grand scale to say we as human beings should strive to make each other better. We should all strive to hold each other accountable, to say we should call each other out when we do commit to shortcuts, piggybacking off of that conversation from earlier. If we see someone who is taking an easy way out instead of committing to the thing that they truly want to commit to, and you know that they truly want to commit to something, but you see them shortcutting it, you know, he who climbs the ladder must start at the bottom. And that doesn't necessarily mean to say that shortcuts in and of themselves are a bad thing, in the idea that if there's something specific that you really want to get out of something, then you don't have to go through all stages of mastery in order to obtain it. But if you truly want to engage with something and maximize the potential within that field, then you really need to stay true to yourself and to have people in your life who are willing to take the force of your personal criticism and frustration with yourself because of your inability to not take shortcuts, which I completely understand. I take shortcuts all the time, and it drives me nuts. I hate the fact that I do so naturally, and that element of life can be perceived or can be viewed from another area of my life, which I really struggled with. I was an impulsive liar for a lot of my early years, and it was always to avoid trouble or pain, and it just led me into even more pain and more trouble. So when I eventually suffered a powerful emotional turmoil that just completely deconstructed me, as I was building myself up again, I asked myself, what is it that I really, really want for myself? I don't want to lie anymore. So I started working on that. I made sure that when I engaged with the world, that regardless of however it is that they viewed me, and I know that I'm not the most brilliant person in the world, I'm not the greatest debater in the world, I'm just going to say, this is where I'm presently at. What is the purpose of this conversation? Is it for you to proselytize me, to convince me that you're right and to change my views to your views? Or are we actually engaging in this conversation to make each other better, to give each other a different perspective than the ones that we already have, and to grow from that? You know, what is it that we can do to achieve a higher level of excellence in our own lives? And I think even people that we recognize that can commit great evils or have committed great evils are still capable of producing some genuine good in the world. And an example of that would be, I was hanging out in a Starbucks one day and I had my chess set open to anybody who wanted to sit down and play a couple of games and just talk to me as a human being. The purpose of the chess set isn't necessarily to play chess, it's to engage with people on an individual level. And one guy came in and he wasn't able to play, he had to leave, but we had a very brief conversation. And he had a teardrop tattoo, and he said that he had recently gotten out of prison and was doing DoorDash, which is why he was at Starbucks. And we just had a brief conversation, and his insight as to, this is what I'm doing right now, this is what I'm trying to make myself have a better life. I made a lot of bad choices and I'm doing what I can to be better. That was very inspiring to me, and I thought that was beautiful. And I can tell that brief conversation made him very appreciative. Another instance, could be, I accidentally locked myself out of my car one day. So I called AAA. They came over, helped me get out of that situation. And the guy just said, and he asked me what the whole situation was. And I told him, and it was embarrassing, but I did. And he said, look, man, the fact that you told me your story is really, it was a really dumb reason why I locked myself out of my car, and I had to wait 30 minutes for him to get there. But he was saying, just the fact that you weren't only honest with me about your not mindlessness, but your lack of self-awareness in that moment, and the fact that you were able to laugh about it and have a kind attitude, and I'm sure you've been waiting out here for a while in this blistering heat, and the fact that you're still so kind about it. You know, I've had and this is him speaking. I've had so many jobs just today where the people were always furious when I got there and just completely took it out on me. So the fact that I gave him an easy time just meant the world to him. And it's moments like that that I reflect on, where the more honest I am, the more compassionate and understanding that I can be with others, the happier the people are around me. And if I'm able to contribute to other people's happiness in a way that is really meaningful, they can really connect with me as a person, even if it's just for a split moment. And we can just appreciate each other's time and company, and just appreciate each other as people, regardless of political views, regardless of our ethics or our values or our whatever. Just existing as human beings and appreciating that moment, I think that's extraordinarily beautiful. You know, I still maintain a childlike sense of wonder when I see the overall goodness and potential that human beings are truly capable of. And, you know, that's spread throughout the animal kingdom, but I find it so much more breathtaking when I watch human beings do it, because a lot of times with animals, it's based off of instinct. You know, I care for my children because they're my children. It's instinctual. But with human beings, the fact that we're capable of just going to someone that could be considered a threat and still pose conscious, genuine goodness to them, or provide conscious, genuine goodness, I find that to be one of the most motivating and beautiful human experiences that I can imagine. Have you ever watched any of The Fairy Voice Mother? I like her reactions because she gets into the science. Plus, she's kind of kooky. Yeah, so I have seen a few of her videos. She started in 2020 and exploded her channel, which I'm dumbfounded by, because I'm trying to figure out the secret sauce in her recipe, because her channel is only a few years old, 4 years old, and I'm nowhere near her numbers. And she doesn't post every day also, and I have no idea how she obtained that, but yeah, she definitely gets into the science of the voice, which is awesome. But when I made my channel, I thought, oh, I'm gonna get a more expansive audience than that, because I'm only going to talk about things that people actually understand and break down some, not a lot of, but just some complex musical ideas and make them much more palatable for the layman. And that obviously didn't work as good as I wanted it to. So who knows, maybe I will go into more scientific, deep explanations of things. But I also don't want to, because I am capable of it. I went to music school and I studied vehemently. But I don't want to copy other people's formula for success. I want to be my own channel. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, she's got a fun and bubbly personality who also knows her stuff. So I understand that. But it also depends on a lot of other criteria. How welcoming are her videos? Her set was very comfortable, where mine isn't as great. She is a lot of fun to look at and to engage with, which I'm sure also contributes to her numbers. Her videos come out not as frequently, so people are more motivated to be drawn to oh, she posted, I gotta jump in on this while I can kind of feeling. Whereas mine are very consistent. Which is why I did have a problem lowering the level of videos that I was putting out every day. But at the same time, you know, uh, what's the maxim? Absence makes the heart grow stronger. So, or fonder, something like that. So, you know, we'll see how that goes, but yeah, I am aware of her channel. I know that she is very popular. She has a lot of good things going for her, and I actually did end up reaching out to her, and she never got back to me. I reached out to her, I want to say a couple or 3 months ago, and I never got anything back. So, you know, it is what it is, but hopefully one day I can get more people of the music environment here on YouTube into some collaborations. I think that would be awesome. But I also know that I'm not quite big enough to host people like Elizabeth or Lolly. I would be interested in your reaction to Mark Vincent. He is an Australian tenor. I first saw him perform when he was 15. I had the pleasure of seeing him live. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never heard of him. Tenor at 15. Interesting. Yeah. When it comes to the voice, like, that's really young for opera singers. I'm always terrified for young opera singers because, one, there could be a tremendous amount of pressure on them to excel at such an early age that they blow out their voice, Jackie Evenko being one of them. Two, they achieve fame at that early age, and even if they don't blow out their voice, they're still a terrifying sensation I get. Like, I think prodigies are novel, but there is... I'm not going to say this for all prodigies because I haven't met all prodigies, but in the ones that I've seen, there's a real danger to being a prodigy. And especially when it comes to opera singing, because your voice isn't developed at that age. You know, I started, like, I've always loved singing my entire life. But I always knew that I wanted to go into singing, but I didn't start training professionally until I was 14. And my voice was still undergoing tremendous change. And my voice didn't actually start... Like, actually, to be honest, I feel like my voice is still changing. But I don't know. There's something really... I always err on the side of caution when I look at prodigies. I worry for them. You know, you can have a great explosive power in being a prodigy, such as Mozart, or by modern standards, you have a pianist like Yuja Wang, an incredible pianist, and was a pianist from an early age, and exceptional as well. But I've more often than not have just seen prodigies burn out, and it hurts watching people get a resentment and a disdain for music, because I definitely empathize with that. I also experienced that in the opera scene. So it's tough. It's really tough navigating excellent early age performers or prodigies. Sir Hairless is another reactor that I found not too long ago. Technical but fun. I believe that. I've only seen one of his videos, and he seems to really enjoy what he's doing. I have no idea how he got to a great level of success, because it looks like a lot of his videos are similar to mine. But he's obviously tremendously more popular. So maybe that's just over time getting to that point. But in tandem with like better thumbnails, better set design, things like that. But we'll see how that goes, because he does seem like a really good guy. He is now 28, I believe. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So the fact that he's obviously still going strong in his late 20s is a good sign. And I hope that continues for him. But with all of that said and done, we are over the hour. And I think we're just going to call it here. This has been a wonderful day. Thank you guys so much for joining me here. And I really appreciate you guys being here. It really does mean a lot. So thank you guys so much. And I'll be sure to see you guys next week. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone.